Yeah. Okay, we're going to get started in just a couple minutes.
Yes, I see it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Gur, are you doing a recording as well?
Yes,
Okay, it is recording now. All right, welcome everyone. I'm Lana Wood. I'm one of the faculty librarians here at Cal State East Bay. And today is going to be focused on using this great tool that we added about a year and a half ago called PolicyMap. And we'll be doing a fair amount of hands-on searching. So if you would like, we have laptops in the front so that you can also follow along with it. But first, and we have about 5 people currently joining us through Zoom as well to see this webinar. So a quick overview of what PolicyMap is. So PolicyMap, it's an online mapping software. You don't have to download anything to your computer to be able to use it. And what it does is it allows users to map data sets onto US geographies. So currently it's set up for the United States and its territories. It doesn't go beyond that at the moment, but it's a nice way to be able to visualize effects and be able to observe patterns, as well as another entry point to be able to download large data sets. The data includes public data, so typically governmental data, as well as proprietary and private data is on there. And the PolicyMap team also adds additional data to it that they add value to. So it can include anything from demographic data like the census, real estate data, health, economic. Quite a bit of data is available on there. And there's a lot of uses for it. And when I was looking at the registration list for folks who had signed up for this workshop, interest from all over the disciplines, which is great. It was first created by the Reinvestment Fund, which used it as a way to make data-driven decisions for where to open up projects, where to invest their funds with different projects. And then they realized it's a tool that so many different people could use, academics, real estate agents, nonprofits, even governmental, that they decided to just launch it as their own product in 2008. But you can use it to answer questions with data, particularly visually with data, which is really nice. A lot of times working with the data set is overwhelming and requires a huge amount of expertise. But this allows you to really jump into the data and work with it without having to have like a background in statistical analysis. You can get a richer understanding of a particular community, compare different locations in the US. It can be used for policy interventions, especially as the name suggests, PolicyMap. It's great for policy assignments, but also just for decisions for concentrating resources. You can use it for historical changes, and they have a lot of tools to be able to use it to enrich student papers, reports, and other things with really like beautiful maps that have these different data layers on it. So for those of you who are just joining us, if you'd like, we have laptops in the front if you want to follow along. You just need to enter your net ID and password to get on the Wi-Fi. And we have handouts as well that have a link to the database, but now I'll show you how to navigate just to open up the database. So I am here on the library homepage, which is just library.csueastbay.edu. To get to PolicyMap, I'm going to go on the left under quick links to databases A to Z. So over here, click on that.
I'm sorry, I can't get online.
Oh, okay, thank you, Andrew. Oh, interesting. That's too bad. Okay, and for those of you who are still having problems connecting, I also put a like a bit.ly URL here that will take you straight to the database with the authentication. This is a database that you can use on or off campus. Off campus, you'll just need to sign in with your NetID and password, but it's the exact same functionality as you'll have on campus. So I went to databases A to Z. I'll click on P for PolicyMap and scroll down, and over here is PolicyMap. So just to orient you to this tool, is everyone able to join me on PolicyMap so far? Okay, great. So to orient you to this tool, we have the default function that it goes to is the mapping function. So up here on the left, we can see that we're using maps. And there's these tools that will follow you regardless of what tool you're on. This citation guide is great. It tells you exactly that you're free to use these resources in your papers, in your reports, and gives you information for how to cite it in various styles. So if we were to click on this, it just opens up another window that gives you information on how to download it and then how to cite from PolicyMap. This is the data directory. So this is extensive information on what data sets are available through PolicyMap. You can also get to that when you're looking at an individual data set, but this would be if you wanted to look through everything, as well as their support function here and feedback. And then if you're going to be using this product, I'd recommend creating an account so that you can save data sets that you've built. Particularly because it's incredibly customizable with like what geographic areas you're looking at. So you can save those searches there. Yes.
When you create that account, do you have to use your email or?
I don't believe so. I think it's any email is fine. It's not linked to our NetID password system. So you could, but it is a proprietary software. So you would have to have, yeah, you'd have to have an access point into PolicyMap, like through your employer or grad school or, yeah, but good question. Okay, so this mapping tool is really the one that we'll be using probably the most for this presentation, but sort of the easiest one to jump into right away, I think, is this reports function. So let's start out at reports. By clicking on reports at the top left. And these are predefined reports. They're still building out new ones. So as you can see here, we have a community health report that's in beta. PolicyMap is an incredibly responsive company. So if you have something to suggest or that you need help with, their tech support's great. And they do take feedback from their users about, you know, if there was a report that would make sense for you to own or to have them add. So here we can see that we have these 3 different locations for a report location. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to be using their predefined locations because they're pretty complete from what I can see. That includes, you know, the country, states, counties, cities, census blocks, political districts. Yes? I believe Puerto Rico is considered in this because it includes US territories. Yeah. Other functions that they have throughout the features is this radius or this custom region. If you're interested in using one of those, you could either reach out to me, or there's a number of video tutorials that show you how to draw on the map exactly what you want to include in your custom region or your radius. But here we'll just be using these predefined locations. So for this community profile, I'm going to go ahead and type in Alameda County. So I type in Alameda and it gives you Alameda City, Alameda County. Let's go with the county. And this is looking open. There we go. And up here on the right is this generate report. Click generate report. And we can, it's pulling together a community profile report for Alameda County or whatever geographic area that you chose. Ton of information. We have how many census tracts there are. Everything that's hyperlinked will give you additional information to what's included. Here's our zip codes, school districts, elected officials, population and population trends. And you'll see too that where there is data that is filling these out, that it's always hyperlinked to show you where they're pulling the data from. So here it's saying the source is the census as well as the years and telling us what county is shown. So we could click on this to go back to that data directory to see, you know, where is this data coming from? What does it include? What are the years? What are the survey methodology? Here's the racial characteristics. It really goes on and on for this. Here we have information on immigration, and this is for Alameda County. And I believe for this report, you could choose pretty much any geography, so city, county, state, or zip. They also have this community health report, which in this case is going to be for county. But essentially what these are is they've put together common searches or common things that you would want to do to have an understanding of a particular region, and then run them through this report so that you can have all of those different data searches that you would have to do individually, but they're running for you. So this can, especially for students, be a really rich resource to be able, when you're working on like a community needs assessment or any sort of thing where you have to describe an area that you're working with, to be able to get demographic, economic, voting information, education level, all of these different pieces in one place that you could include.
So how do you know the information is accurate? Is it coming from different sources?
Yeah, so the question is, how do you know that the information is accurate, which is always a great thing to question the accuracy of the information. So they do a good job. Let me bring that report back up. I mean, you know, so they do a good job of showing you where the information is coming from, which is one way that you can look into its accuracy. So here underneath population trends, we see that the source is the census. If we were to click on that, then it's going to tell us about the census, the years that it came from, years available, and then more information that you could go to look at these places. I know PolicyMap, part of one of their value added services is that they have a team that goes to make sure that we have the most current data uploaded as quickly as possible. But you can also see what year the data is from, especially when we're in the mapping tool. We'll be able to see and manipulate which one we want to be in. But, you know, and then it just comes down to sort of critically evaluating the source on your own. You know, government is complicated. And we've all are hearing about the census and the political and ethical questions that are coming up with the upcoming census, but it does give you the source. Yeah.
When you load data on the data loader, you use that data to see you have like something that collects different data through Shaky View or Google Maps or something like that. Can you correlate that with the data? Say you have census data that describes demographics in the neighborhood or region. Can you correlate that data with the data in the census report so that you kind of have a set of data that measures educational level, but not data
I think I get the point. Let me just repeat the question too. So he was asking if when you upload data, if you can correlate it to existing data in PolicyMap. I won't be getting into the data uploading, but they do have information on it, just so you know. I won't be covering that today, but yes. And once I show you the maps, you'll see that there's two categories of data. There's thematic data, which is like a heat map. So what you're used to seeing where like darker colors mean more concentration of a particular thing. And then the other data points, and the other option is data points, which would be like location specific information. So let's say you're interested in food deserts and BMI, right? So you could do BMI as a heat map to see where there are concentrations of people who have BMI that's in the obese range and beyond, and then map farmers market or grocery locations on to see if there's a correlation. So you could take your own data sets and map them together, but you wouldn't be able, you could overlay them, but you aren't able to edit any of the data that's on there already. Yeah, but good question. There are, I'll show you where to go for further resources, and they do show, they do have a number of videos about how to upload your own data and then manipulate it in PolicyMap. So I'd be happy to refer you to those for the use of it. It is definitely a nice thing about this tool. Okay, so that was the report function. Let's jump in now to this mapping function. So up here on the left, I'm using the default maps. And to get started in PolicyMap, the first thing you have to do is choose a location. It works the same as the report that we just ran, where they're preloaded. So you just have to start typing in the location. So if we were to type in Hayward, it's going to give you all of the locations in the US that have Hayward in their title if you wanted to go with the city. And then you start to access the late. So what I mentioned about the data is that in PolicyMap, it's organized thematically. So up here we have demographics, incomes and spending, housing, lending, quality of life, economy, education, health, federal guidelines, and analytics. And then within each of these large categories are these data layers. So these are those heat maps that I was talking about, where it's going to show us the color coding of concentration. And in all of these, when you go through, there's usually sub-menus within. So if we're interested in race, then you can choose specifically white, non-white, Black, Asian. And some of these even have sub-menus that you'll see as you hover over them. So you can really get pretty precise with the data that we can map on. And then if available, see, I know we have some under quality of life. We also have these data points. So these are going to be the individual location like flags that show up on your map for different things. Like here we could have one for a Superfund site. They have one for libraries, nonprofit locations. Oh, look, Lee, there is park access. We had a faculty member who was interested in mapping park access and poverty. And each of these has these options here. They also, just for getting started today, they also have these quick maps, which are a nice way to understand how you can use multiple layers to answer a question. Because you can spend time just kind of looking around, but it's always better to come to this product with a question in mind. So here, if we want to know what was the murder rate in 2017 by county, so we can click on this quick map. And it defaults to whatever location we had here, but let's zoom out to just the state of California. I don't know why I chose, let's not do a depressing one like this. This is also depressing though. What's the average travel time to work? But less depressing than murder. So we'll go with this one. So the question that it's showing us here, estimated average travel time to work in minutes. We're going to, you could either manually zoom out with the zoom slider on the right, or we can just type in a new location. Let's go with California State. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about with the heat maps, right? So we're seeing darker colors and lighter colors. On this legend over here, the data layer, we're also getting information. We have a link to where the data came from. This is census data. You can select what year you want to work with. They have 3 data sets available. We're using the most current one, which is 2013 to 2017. you can adjust the variable. So right now we're looking at average. That's the only one available, but you'll see sometimes like an absolute number versus a percentage. So you can adjust those variables. And then you can select the shading. So we could switch this to look at city. I'd assume this is city of residence. Oh, but the data was not available at that level. The data is available at the county level. So it'll give you options to shade the boundaries that we're looking at by different geographies, but it does have to be the same as what the data was collected by. So if the data was collected at a county level, you won't be able to shade it by a city because the data wasn't collected at that level. And they give you default ranges, but these are also customizable too. So if you had a particular range in mind, like let's say we know that Bay Area commutes can be, you know, much more than 29 minutes. So we want to ramp up the range. We could change this to be, you know, whatever numbers we want here, and the map will be responsive. The number of ranges and even the colors of the map you can change as well. But let's start looking at what's going on in the Bay Area. I'm actually gonna go ahead and increase these. Okay, so now we're looking at a bigger range for that darker color. And I'll just show you how we can zoom in now and see, oh, maybe the default ranges were actually better. Okay, so we can see, oh yeah, maybe. So as we zoom in, not surprisingly, we can see that the Bay Area and the feeder counties with folks who commute often from places like Stockton, Tracy, have on average by county much longer commute times. And if we wanted to, we could also add in one of these data points, like that's what would be one that makes sense here. Yeah, for education. We could add in like maybe people are living certain places because of school performance. And so we can add in these different data points and specify how we want these data points to be. Like we want only great schools 9 through 10 to be showing up here. So, you know, I don't know if this map makes any sense, but it's good just to show you how these two layers can interact on this map tool, where you can have a data layer and have these data points to look for patterns that might emerge with the data that you're using.
All right, and see where you click for the data points.
So data points are also under these thematic questions. It's just in this right hand. So there aren't as many data points available as data layers, but these are the ones that they have. And you could also upload, if you had data point specific data to load, then you could load yours in to look for things as well.
So when you say load your own cycle, so how do you do that again?
So I won't be going over that, but they do have videos for it. And essentially you have like a very robust spreadsheet that you are loading into it that will have to match the categories that are required by them to have. And then, like, let's say that you ran a survey on, you know, carpooling or something like that, right? And then you collected all this data for people in the Bay Area who carpool, and then you want that to interact with this average commute time data, then you would use their upload data function, which they walk you through how to upload your data. And then you can then put it in and choose whether or not you want to just use it yourself, share it with colleagues, or make it available to everyone who uses PolicyMap. Yeah, but I'm happy to send you some videos that show how to do the data uploading. I think this tool is just a lot more robust than I can show in an hour, and include that as well.
though there's not data that is international data, if you get a data set, let's say from, I don't know, like UN or something, you get data sets that have certain, can you show that data set, international data set, or is it just?
I'm not sure. I would bump that question up to PolicyMap support. I'm not sure if that is a use that they support, but I'm sure that someone there could answer that question. Yeah. I will say for like student assignments, and when I've worked with students, you know, they do need to be limited to the United States and its territories in order to use this tool. So that's just something to keep in mind when thinking about how to use this for your work, for your classroom, or for your schoolwork as well. Okay.
And how do you access the tutorial?
The tutorials are on their website, and you can also, I found the easiest thing is actually just to go to their YouTube page, because that's where they're coming from on their tutorial site, and it's easier to just search within YouTube for, there's a lot of examples of curriculum for how different professors are using PolicyMap for an assignment on there. There's also a lot of examples of how to do XYZ using PolicyMap. And information on like data loading like that as well. Okay, so in addition to all of these, well, so let me show you one where I'm building it. I'm not using that quick maps. So if we were to look at health data, I used this in a class that was looking at Zika and coming up with policy solutions if there were to be an outbreak of Zika at the county, state, or federal level. So one of the things that we were talking about is, well, what can you do to, how do you reach pregnant people when they can have, when it's early enough for them to wear protective clothing or do other preventative care from contracting Zika. So PolicyMap was really helpful for that because we were able to go into this. I'm in the health category. I'm going to look at birth and prenatal care data, and then look at, we have this information here of prenatal care in the first trimester. So I can click on this, all mothers care in the, I'm gonna get rid of this data point. And this is coming from the CDC. It's from 2017, and it's available at the county level. So let's zoom out to California again. And then we have ranges here on the left. So what we could do in using this data is see, okay, do we want to concentrate our efforts at, like, we have limited resources for the entire state of California. Do we want to concentrate our efforts of, you know, a health education program for pregnant women in areas where there are already high rates of prenatal care in the first trimester? So we could use this tool to help say, you know, while it's important to also address these more rural communities, that tool will not work as well. So we need to allocate more of the resources to these counties that are shown, that are darker, where there's higher rates of prenatal care in the first trimester. So that's really where we want to concentrate our resources, is, you know, in these areas of Southern California. Whereas we know that, you know, for more north of the state, we're going to have to use a different strategy to be able to reach pregnant people. Does that make sense as an example of something I answered with this? Great. Okay, so this is the map tool. Let's take a look at a couple of the other options that they have for us. We have this report function. Oh wait, no, we use reports. Let's do tables. So tables is a more consistent way to be able to see actual numbers too. So I like to go to this just when I'm trying to figure out what different rates are of certain things. So it works the same as all the other layers where you always start with a location. So let's compare Alameda County, California. You could compare, you know, similar cities, counties, but I want to just do a comparison. Okay, so here on the bottom, we see the 3 locations that I put in. You can put in more. And we are going to compare these 3 on any, you know, data set that has information at these levels to look. So let's look at some demographic information here. So we can go into this demographics tab, and let's go with, let's say we're interested in foreign-born populations in these 3 different locations. So we can go down to demographics, foreign-born, and then go up to all. And now we can see a comparison that Alameda County has a much higher percentage of the population that is born in another country than the state, than the United States. We also can get these rankings. So if we were to click on, so California has the highest percent of a foreign-born population in the country of all. I'm assuming this also includes Puerto Rico, since it has 51 states, or the District of Columbia. We'd have to figure that out. But if we click on See Rankings, then we can see the percentages for all of the states and where California is in relation to them. And this is possible as well as we could open up this see values for counties for the state. And we can see where Alameda County is in comparison to the other counties in California for this percentage. So it's a really nice way to be able to easily compare things. And then this graphic and this information, you can click on this print function, I believe, to be able to save it as a PDF or an image file that you could then put in your work. And same as before, it has all the customizable, like you could do it by, we could do it by percent change or by number, which is less relevant when you're comparing different geographies like this. Yeah, Jeffra.
So my charts are the different, my columns are in a different order than yours.
Yeah.
Some way you can move those around easily if you wanted to.
I don't think you can drag them. It just,
Right.
yeah, it just has to do with the order that you entered them in. So you would probably just have to, you'd have to delete it and move them around. But if I were to delete, like let's say I'm actually interested in comparing Alameda County with Contra Costa County. It maintains the data set that you were looking at and then just changes the locations in these comparisons if we wanted to compare in that way.
Where did you click on tables?
So tables is up here in the left. It defaults to maps, and then you want to select tables at the top left of the header to be able to get in here. And same information where you can click on the census to see where the data is coming from their data dictionary. And I believe they don't have suggested searches here, but I think pretty much all of the data that they have available in here. So like if we wanted to look at, this is a new data set that they just recently added, which is about computer and internet access. So if we wanted to look at broader, you know, the availability of broadband, or this one I think is really interesting too, is you can look at households with smartphones only, so that don't have like a computer. We could put in that information as well to see, to compare different locations. Like let's compare it with California and maybe like access. Yeah, so you're able to work with pretty much all of their different data sets in this table function, and this is a nice feature to be able to download and put in projects. Yeah.
So this really interesting study, which was a study of that citywide diversity at city level and integration, ethnic diversity at city level, compared to city neighborhood integration. So then it had the citywide sort of ethnic diversity there, but then it compared it to neighborhood level, and is there a granular level below city level?
There's zip code. There's I don't know. There's census tract, which may be more granular, but probably zip code would be. And then again, it depends on how the data was collected. So if the data wasn't collected at a zip code level, then it won't be possible to parse it out by zip code. Like if it were collected at a city or county level, then you're limited by, you know, what the data says. But yeah, especially in like this maps tool, you can put in this zip, or this even lets you put in coordinates of latitude and longitude, or do those custom mappings that with this create feature, where you could either draw a custom region or assemble a custom region, probably by putting together different zip codes or cities, or choosing like 3-mile radius or whatever radius you want from a particular zip code or location as well. Okay. So the last feature that I'm going to show is this multi-layer map that you can make. And so what this is it's you're choosing multiple layers of data. So again, these ones on the left, not the data points, to put together, and you're putting in different qualifications. So it would be, if you think of that classic library searching with and as your Boolean operator, what you're doing with this is you are only pulling back locations that meet set criteria that you're saying from each of those different layers. So that's how the heat map is working. So if let's see what examples they have. Okay, so we're going to use this example one that they have, which is, where do young people live who speak Spanish at home in Los Angeles? So here we have 2 data sets that are placed on top of each other. We have the median age of all people between 2013 to 2017, and this predetermined search has set the ages between 8 and below 30. We could change this even, I believe we can change that to 0. Oh, that's the lowest age that probably the census collected at, was 8. And then we're doing just below 30. And then it is saying, so this map is showing us all of the, this looks like it's done on a block by block basis, perhaps. And then the estimated percentage of all people age 5 and older who were Spanish speaking between 2013 and 2017, also from the census. And the rate here is 15% of that geography or higher. So the shading that we're now seeing which we can zoom out to see additional areas, are the places that meet both of these criteria. So this would be places with at least 15% of the population speaking Spanish, where the median age is 30 years or younger. And you can see here that it is done on a really finite scale here. And then if we wanted to take that suggested search, we could plop in another location like the state of Texas, and keep those 2 data layers that we're looking at to look at a different location as well. some other examples that we could do with this 3-layer map. Well, do any of you have examples of like a question that we might be able to do where criteria meets?
Can you touch on the historical aspect, for example, in education, like what the history of, how about the migration of Blacks from the city of Hayward in the educational system? Like, at one point there was a large population, now it's decreased.
Okay, so we could go to demographic data and add in the data level. Let's put in. I'm trying to think if we can do that. So the question for those on Zoom is to look at the example of the Black population in terms of
In Hayward,
but in terms of what was the educational piece?
historically, so if you could go back like, 10 years.
But sorry, what was the educational piece that you were interested in?
Oh, in the education, in the unified school district.
Enrollment in the unified school district. So I think that may not be something that you have to use multiple layers for, which I don't know if you can manipulate these multiple layers in the same way that you can, like, let's go back to this map function and try to, let's see if there's information in this education thing. So we have educational attainment, which isn't really, we have school enrollment, but it doesn't break it out by race. Trying to see what else we have that has that demographic information attached to it. Quickly thinking about it, I could spend some more time thinking about it as well if you want to talk to me after. But I would say that if the data that exists here, if you can't answer it with the single level data, which I don't believe you can, you could do a layered map where you're putting demographic data with educational attainment. But then I don't know if you could do it historically. Yeah.
When I click back and go through the years, it looks like the earliest available is 2000.
Yeah. Yeah, so they'll tell you, so was that census data? Yeah, so it'll tell you, like when you're in this map function and we're looking at some demographic data, like, then it will give you all the options, and yeah, it only goes back as far as 2000, but you should be able to, I'm gonna have to think about that specific question. I'm not sure if the data that's present can answer it, but it might be possible. In PolicyMap? Can you tell me how you found that? Yeah. Yeah. So for those on Zoom, he was showing, or he was explaining to us how one way to help answer that question is to go into this education function and then go by educational attainment by race. does that answer what you're hoping to find with it? And looking at it historically over the 4 sets of census, I don't think that it completely gets at it, but it may. Yeah. Yeah, so it's sort of, I mean, we're limited by which data is present in this database, or more specifically, what data is collected. So it may be, you know, perhaps Hayward Public Schools has that data, but it isn't made available through this tool. But that's where if you could get those data sets from another source, you could use the data uploader to put in the data that you're trying to work with, and then layer it to answer those more specific questions. Yeah. Okay, so before.
But where did you find the first example? You said they had a preset example in there when you were
Yeah.
looking at the language in LA.
Sure.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, so we were in 3-layer maps. So in all of the functions that have them, which I believe is everything except for reports, when you open up these broad categories, on the far right, they have these quick 3-layer maps, which I find helpful. Like when I was prepping for this workshop, you know, I was trying to piece together a bunch of data sets, but you need to have some congruency with like what level the data is collected at. Because if you have data that was collected at a state level and you're trying to overlay it with data that was collected at like a county or zip code level, then you would only be able to look at it at a state level, because it's sort of like whatever the lowest level is of the multiple data, or what am I trying to say? The highest, lowest level. Yeah, so it's you're limited when you start combining them. You can't make data that was collected at a high level more granular. So that's why I found using these quick layer maps like a good starting place to think about how else to run these different searches. So like here is this tool is really popular with realtors because you can look at a lot of information. So here, like where the most expensive vacation homes that are vacant, or where are the expensive homes vacant near Phoenix. And then we can see here what data sets they're using as well.
So where was the question about the Spanish speaking?
The question of Spanish speaking was under demographics. So first you have to be in this 3-layer maps tool. And then when you click on demographics, in the far right, we have these quick 3-layer maps. And the first one is, where do young people live who speak Spanish at home in Los Angeles? Yeah. Any other questions before I show how to get support? Okay. And no questions coming in through Zoom? Okay, great. So to get help, you could get help directly from PolicyMap, which is what I'd recommend if you are going to use the data uploader, because you need to make sure that the format of your data matches what they're able to ingest. So you can just click on the support tab here. In terms of using PolicyMap, you can get help from us at the library, any of the librarians, by clicking on this Ask Us tab. And we have chat, though that may be tricky for this tool because it's so visual, although we can do screen sharing. But we have our reference desk with hours. You can reach out to myself or book research consultations with other librarians by clicking through this book consultation, or email, and then the reference desk hours we have here in our hours tab for reference for the Hayward campus. So that's just drop in, no appointment needed support at our Ask Us page. But I've found that for me, when I've been stuck with PolicyMap, using their support page has actually been a lot more helpful. they have pretty robust information on how to use their different features, like the maps table report function. Here's information on data loader. Oh, I also forgot to mention that you can download the data sets through PolicyMap, which is a nice way rather than having to navigate through like often difficult government web pages to find the data sets you need. When you're in PolicyMap, it gives you the option to download the entire data set so that you could upload it into like statistical software or something that you're using to be able to manipulate it in a separate tool. So there's information there. And let me see how I get you to their YouTube page. I think if you find a video, it will send you into their YouTube page, but I think I just Googled and the PolicyMap channel has really great videos for, so here we can see, you know, some are short, some are long. There's a lot of information on specific questions. So like here, computer and internet access, lots of stuff on health, community health, healthy food access. So this is probably like a food desert one, childcare, social disparities. So you can just see that people are using this tool for really, you know, multidisciplinary and all over the map questions. And there's help if you are to go into their YouTube channel and search within it. You can probably find a video that's addressing, you know, the function that you're trying to use. Yeah.
So if I'm working with a research collaboration which has maybe like 3 other people who are working on the collaboration, one translate
Mm-hmm.
then is there a way of getting them access to the content without having to pay for it through the website?
I'm not sure as well. You're asking a lot of advanced user questions. I don't know, but I know that a lot of other universities do have PolicyMap. It's a popular GIS software to offer. So there's a possibility that they have it through their libraries, and then you can collaborate cross institution. But there's a free version of PolicyMap that is very limited, and then I would be hesitant to say that you'd be able to collaborate with folks from other campuses that don't have access. No. We're restricted to only be able to give access to faculty and current faculty, staff, and students. Yeah.
Where was the upload data feature?
Yeah, so the upload feature is available, I believe it's just this data loader. And then this will walk you through how you're going to upload your data. You could manually enter it using the map, or you can load data sets. And it looks like these are ones that other people have uploaded that they have made available to all users. But it'll walk you through like how to do your spreadsheet of points, or you can do it manually. All right, any other questions? Well, feel free to reach out to me individually, Lana Wood, or to the other librarians, many of whom are present at this workshop, for help using PolicyMap. But I hope it's a really rich tool. I also forgot to mention that we are paying for it with what's called A2E2 funding. So that comes from student fees. It's a really wonderful resource for being able to work with, you know, there's a lot of buzz about like open data and making data accessible, but data really isn't very accessible if you're just given a giant raw file. So this is a nice way to be able to interact with it in a geographic way, to be able to look for patterns and get other answers. All right, well, thank you everyone for coming. I believe we have evaluations to pass around. Yeah.
Next week we have more workshops on evaluating resources on Tuesday, and let's see, Thursdays is